What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pub Sports Radio and welcome to Stat Diggers. We're going to dive deep into UFC London, and I really like this card. I think it is stacked from top to bottom. I mean, look at it right here. I mean, the first fight of the night, as of now, is Herbert, Elia Teporia. We have Tom Aspinall, Volkov in the main event. I'm really looking forward to this card, really looking forward to making some money and talking it through with Uncle Weezy in the chat as well as always. Uncle Weezy, you looking forward to this card as much as me?
Fantastic card. I love this card. So many bangers. It reminds me of last week's card where we were talking on Stat Diggers last week about how violence was the word for last night's card. And it really started off that way. This one feels exactly the same way. So many fights that I look at here, I say, man, that one's going to finish. So this is going to be a really exciting one. We're going to see a live crowd in the United Kingdom, a lot of hometown fighters. I can't wait for this one, dude. And it's going to be a nice early start. This is a great card, dude. Can't wait to chop it up with you.
For sure. Cannot wait for it. Hopefully everybody is ready for this banger of a card. And like you said, last night was a banger as well. I think we had 8 out of 14 fights finish, which is the most finishes thus far of 2022. So yeah, that was awesome last night outside of the main event, which was not great, but I think the rest of the card was good. For me, last night, it was actually the least amount of action I've had all year. I did have 6 units on the card. I think the second to least amount I've had on the card this year. I think the other event was like 6.5, but it was a make or break night for me in the McKinney and Dober fight. I had 3.5 units across the fight doesn't go and the under 2.5 rounds. If that was to hit, it would have been a winning night. And if that was to lose, it would have been a losing night and a really bad losing night. But luckily, McKinney came in there, fought like a wild man as expected, almost finished Dober. And then Dober was able to finish him late in that first round. I actually think that McKinney's stock goes up, at least for me in that fight. I mean, to go out there and hurt Drew Dober like that multiple times, like a flying knee at one point. I think he head kicked him flush at one point. And of course, you can't go chin for chin with Dober. And he lost that fight, but I'm really looking forward to seeing McKinney right back in there. I think he's one of the most exciting fighters. But so that hit. And then my other win was the Damon Jackson, Camelo Kirk under 2.5 rounds, plus 140. I probably should have went a full unit on that, but did only go a half unit. And then my 2 losses were the fight doesn't go to decision in the main event, Santos and Ankalaev. Not much to say there. Not much happened. Got minus 135. I felt good about the price, but not really close outside of Santos dropping Ankalaev, I think, in the 3rd round. And then my moneyline bet was Carl Roberson plus 104. I felt terrible about that bet as soon as I made it, and he closed at like minus 135, minus 140, which made me feel even worse. And, a thing I talked about earlier in the year was don't bet on guys with bad fight IQ. I didn't think that would matter in this fight. I knew Roberson had bad fight IQ, but man, did it ever matter. He went in there, he looked awful, did not throw anything, went for one half-ass takedown, and then ended up getting knocked out in the 2nd round. But overall, it was a good night. I mean, 6 units on the line, profit of 1.6, not too much action, not much to talk about. But Weezy, how'd you do last night?
I mean, I had a good week, kind of a confusing week. I did a horrible job of tracking bets this week. I got drunk on Friday night and then thought it'd be a good idea to bet Jillian Robertson. So I tracked a bet that I made where I put a little bit on her to win by decision, and then a little bit on her to win by submission on another website. So I kind of got like this plus 140 cross on Jillian by decision or submission. Then when I woke up in the morning, I realized I had tracked the bet, but I didn't actually make the bet. And then so I decided not to make the bet, but then I didn't get the bet off the page. So lost the unit, tracked on Jillian Robertson, which I didn't actually bet. But then I also lost on the Ankalaev Santos fight. Doesn't go to decision. That wound up being a really bad fight. I also lost on what else? Oh yeah, it was the Ankalaev KO prop that got pushed from plus 130 to plus 170 on FanDuel. So I thought that was just a great bet because you get a minus 650 favorite for his best win condition at plus 170. So I lost a unit there. Lost 1.45 on the fight doesn't go to decision. But I made a unit on the McKinney fight not going to the distance, and also had an untracked 1 unit bet at plus 165, the mistake line on Bovada. And that one was plus 1.65 units. That was untracked though because it was a mistake line. And then also I have to take my victory lap on best bet. I said that the line for fight doesn't go to decision for Silva Pereira was so juiced that what you might as well do is to put a small bet on the fight goes to decision. Don't tell anybody that you're making the bet. And then when the fight actually does go the distance, you could post it on Twitter, say you knew it all along and that the value was on the fight goes and that you were just a great trader. And sure enough, the fight wound up going to decision. I have no idea how that went to decision. Bruno Silva has a hell of a chin on him. So that was a great fight. The Dober-McKinney fight was absolutely bonkers. Loved that fight. Azamat Mirzakhanov was Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week, Brady, and he wound up absolutely flattening Tafon Nchukwi with a jump knee in the third round after hurting him with a left hook. He looked good, man. The conditioning didn't abandon him for a guy we've never even seen in a third round before. He looked really good out there. And it was a close fight up to that point. I think he was getting outpointed by Nchukwi, but he was probably landing the bigger shots. All around a good week, untracked. I was up at least a couple of units, but tracked down under a unit. 9 out of the last 10 events are winning for me, though. So, Stack Diggers is helping me out. Talking through these cards with you is helping me out. And I hope we keep stacking cash tickets like flapjacks, my man.
Yes, sir. Hopefully we keep doing it this week as well. I do have 2 bets. I think you have a bet as well.
Yep.
And yeah, I don't usually do parlays, but this is a week where I am venturing into a parlay. So hopefully it does work out. I do want to say what's up in the chat before we get started. If you guys can all please leave a like on the video. It does help out a ton here. Subscribe here to Post Sports as well. But we'll be back on Wednesday for the DraftKings show. We have Saint Trunks 1982, first one in the chat. Mushroom in the chat as well. Our guy Eric Bets Fights, Sean V. Chris, we got our guy Lou Betcha, and we have Tim, who had a monster parlay last night. I did see that. And Lou also had a ton of great calls last night. We got Gerald Roy. We have the Vig, Paul hanging out as always, PSSA. See MMA Asphalt, David. We have Will Kick Ignacio. I like that name. TMN, Xtros, Mark's on. I am Jeff, Bonquiqui, F. Carrillo. And I think that is about it. I see you in there, Blake and Ilmac. And we do have a dono from the man himself, F. Grillo, saying, still faithful. You guys appreciate that, F. Grillo, for donating, pretty much every week. Do appreciate that a ton. It does mean a lot. So we'll go right into the card here. So UFC London, phenomenal card. Start time as of now, 1:00 p.m. Eastern time. So a little bit earlier. But yeah, this card's awesome. As of now, first fight of the night, Jai Herbert going against Elia Teporia. And I'm not sure why this is not on the main card, but this just tells you how stacked this card is, because this is probably one of my favorite fights on the entire card. We have Jai Herbert, who is 33 years old, 6'1", with a 77-inch reach. And we have Elia Teporia, 25 years old, 5'7", with a 69-inch reach. Something important to note is going to be that this fight is going to be at 155, which is going to be the very first fight at 155 for Elia Teporia, and he's clearly going to be undersized here. Teporia is going to be at a 6-inch height disadvantage and a massive 8-inch reach disadvantage as well. We'll take a look at the last few fights. Jai Herbert, 3-2 in his last 5 fights, a knockout win over Jack Grant, and then a knockout win over Kane. And then he comes into the UFC against Francisco Trinaldo and then loses by knockout. That was the fight where he was looking good early. I thought he was going to win the fight, and then he ends up getting knocked out by Trinaldo. That was the whole Herb Dean situation. And then he comes back and gets submitted by Renato Moicano in the late second round. Moicano is able to take him down sometime in the first. Moicano is able to easily get into mount. I thought he was going to finish him there. Herbert survives to the second round, and then Moicano takes him down again and ends up finishing him. I thought, Moicano could have got him out there with a TKO, but ended up just submitting him. And once he got that choke on, he tapped immediately. And then he bounces back against a win, gets a win against Kama Worthy as well. Elia Teporia, he makes his debut against Yusuf Zalal. I'll never forget that moment. It's just crazy that I was able to bet Elia Teporia as an underdog against Yusuf Zalal. If they fought again, he would be a massive, massive favorite. But yeah, looked really good in that fight. That was actually his first decision win. I think he came in on somewhat short notice as well. But yeah, this guy looked good. His ground game looked phenomenal. And was able to win his first decision, which I was not really expecting, but he looked good. And then comes back and knocks out Damon Jackson in the first round, and then comes back and knocks out Ryan Hall in the first round. So yeah, first of all, this is a phenomenal fight. I think this is going to be an absolute banger. We have a striker versus grappler here, but as we've seen in his last couple fights, Topuria has a ton of power on the feet, and I think he is a good striker. But if I'm Topuria here, I'm taking down Jai Herbert, who has shown very questionable takedown defense thus far of 30%, has shown a very questionable ground game so far. He's shown a questionable chin in his career. I mean, he's been knocked out by Trinaldo in his debut. Not only that, but he got knocked out by Reese McKee, got completely flatlined by him. I just think Topuria has multiple paths to victory here. I think on the feet, he could pressure and have success and probably knock out Jai Herbert, who has no striking defense and no chin. But if I'm Topuria, like I said, I'm going to take this guy down to the mat. Topuria's ground game is legit. We have not seen it in 2 fights, but I went back and watched it, and I remembered really quickly how good of a grappler Elia Teporia is. This guy is very dangerous. So I think he comes in here. I think he either comes forward, knocks out Herbert early, or takes him down and submits him really shortly after. But if Teporia comes in here and wants to test his striking, that's giving Herbert a path to victory. Herbert, again, is going to have an 8-inch reach advantage, a big height advantage. And I believe Teporia is coming in on a little bit short notice as well. So I like Teporia here. I'm not going to lay the -400, but I do see a lot of people parlaying him up. I don't hate it. I think he wins, but I'm going to be looking at violence instead. I think this fight does finish more often than not. Weezy, what do you think about this banger here?
Yeah, I think we should get that violence ticker up on the screen because that is the word for this fight, man. 25 total fights for these guys, and I have 22 of them finishing inside the distance, whether they're wins or losses. So these guys are great finishers, both of them. Topuria, 10 of 11 wins, and Jai Herbert, 10 of 11 wins. So they're both, getting it done. Herbert mostly by knockout. Topuria, 2 times for every one for knockouts, he's getting submissions. So he's definitely really the more submission-based grappler, while Jai Herbert is just flat out knocking dudes out. When we look at the UFC striking numbers right here, Herbert's at a disadvantage, landing 2.18, but having 2.81 landed on him. 37% accuracy, but look at that power number. That's almost 4% knockdowns for total significant strikes landed. Sorry, I had to sneeze there, Brady.
You're good.
Yeah, so he's landed 2 knockdowns in only 52 strikes landed. That's crazy. I'm sorry. Yeah, two knockdowns in only 3 fights. So yeah, just under 4%, 1.26 knockdowns per 15 minutes. But he does have a 44% striking defense. He's been knocked down once in those 3 fights and is allowing 0.63 knockdowns for 15 minutes. Topuria's striking has been great in the UFC. Lands 2.77, absorbs 1.92, 65% striking defense, and 48.5% striking accuracy. And he shows power, landing 1 knockdown in 3 UFC fights. So both of these guys have power, but with Herbert having an 8-inch reach advantage, it's pretty, easy to say, all right, if this fight stays standing, it's going to be Herbert that's probably going to be the minute winner and the moment winner, but we do know that Teporia has a ton of power in his own right. But the problem is the grappling, like you mentioned earlier, right? Jai Herbert has tried 0 takedowns, and he's had 10 attempted against him. He's allowed 7 of those 10 takedown attempts to be successful. That means he's showing 30% takedown defense, Brady. He's allowing 4.4 takedowns per 15 minutes. And in 3 UFC fights, he's allowed 45.63% control time and almost 2 submission attempts for 15 minutes. While Teporia is getting 42% control time on 5 of 9 takedowns, which is 55.56%. 3.35 takedowns per 15 minutes for Teporia and 3.35 submission attempts. And he's successfully defended all 5 takedown attempts against him. So he's got 100% takedown defense, and he's only allowed 13.68% control time, pretty much all of that along the fence in the Zalal fight. So, you got one guy who's doing a good job of winning minutes using his grappling. And that is a great recipe to beat Jai Herbert. We see Jai Herbert having success when he's on the feet striking at distance. He dropped Francisco Trinaldo. He dropped Kama Worthy. He drops dudes on the regional scene. Black Country Banger is no joke with his fists. But you just don't want to, and neither is Teporia, but he's so much better on the ground. The path is there. I would expect Topuria to go to his grappling early and often here. And if he does, I do expect him to get a submission pretty quickly. If he doesn't, I expect this fight to stay on the feet and somebody to get their head punted into the third row. So either way, man, fight doesn't go to decision feels like the best way to play this because the line is really wide on Ilia right now. And he is coming in on short notice. This was supposed to be what might have even, it sounds stupid to say because this fight's going to be awesome, but it might have even been a better fight with Jai Herbert standing up against Mike Davis, who's just incredibly fun to watch and a great boxer. So, can't wait for this fight, Brady. What a way to start if this actually winds up being the first fight of the night.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, like you said, I mean, there are some slight things to just talk about. Like Topuria is coming in on short notice, and Topuria, he pulled out of the Jourdain fight, right? Do you remember why he pulled out? I think it was something with weight cut issues, and that was like what, a month and a half ago?
Yeah, it was the less than 48 hours before the fight, if I remember correctly. Because I believe I had a 3-cheeked ass shaving that I gave out that week, and Topuria was on that, so it had to be after Tuesday when I do just the tips. So, and it was, I believe, weight cut issues after he had just gotten through talking all this shit about Movsar Evloev, who had to pull out when he got sick or he got injured. I forget what it was, but and that's a shame because I wanted to see that fight. But here we are. Jai Herbert, Ilia Teporia, UFC England, the supposed curtain jerker. What a way to start.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I do want to shout out some donos. We have Big Steve with the $5 dono. Appreciate you, Big Steve. Thank you so much. And we have MMA Asphalt with the $13.99 saying absolutely killed the bookies this weekend. Hit a 11-1 and a 10-1. There you go. Thank you, Brady and Weezy, for all the hard work you do. Really made me rethink and double down on my confident plays. Well, thank you, MMA Asphalt. Keep killing the game. Appreciate you. So we'll take a look at the odds here. And, yeah, I mean, it's wide. I went and I taped Jai Herbert, and I really liked what I saw in terms of the striking. He's very long, very rangy, going to have a big size advantage in this fight. I did not want to lay the I thought about it. I thought about laying the hammer on Topuria. I think he does win, but what I liked more was, I like the fight doesn't go to decision more, and I figured that I'd get it at a better price than minus 400 for Topuria, and I think that is the case. But Topuria, he opened up minus 500, and he's now minus 375, and Jai Herbert opened up plus 375. He's currently plus 300. Looks like the fight doesn't go to decision. It opened up minus 270, and it's getting completely smashed as we speak, and it's currently minus 320. So, yeah, people are all over it, and rightfully so. I think Topuria is probably a solid parlay piece. I think the fight doesn't go. It's probably a solid parlay piece, but give me Topuria here, but I hope he comes in here and wrestles right away. I think if he does, I think it's a finish.
Yeah, and I think if he doesn't, he's still got a chance to knock out Jai. But the way that Jai throws those hands, I mean, I think if he's smart, he goes in there and he takes him down. The way Jai Herbert knocks people out, it reminds me of the way that Calvin Kattar knocks people out when he really gets him with those straight punches and completely at the end of his punches. It's like highlight reel every time Jai Herbert hurts somebody. And dude, when you got an 8-inch reach advantage like he does over Topuria, I think it would be very irresponsible for Topuria to stand at range and box with this dude. Very irresponsible.
Yep, I totally agree with that. But yeah, banger of a fight, and we will move on to another fight here. We have Nathaniel Wood going against Vince Morales, and it seems to be the case with most of this card. Like, a bunch of different opponents coming in, and he was supposed to fight that Chilean guy who lost to Shore in his debut. But yeah, in steps Vince Morales coming in on short notice. So Nathaniel Wood, 28 years old, 5'6" with a 69-inch reach. Vince Morales, 31 years old, 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. Nathaniel Wood, 3-2 in his last 5 fights. A submission win against Andre Ewell, a submission win against Jose Quinones, a knockout loss to John Dodson, a decision win against John Castaneda, which is aging quite nicely, a decision loss to Casey Kenny in a very, very competitive close fight. Vince Morales, 3-2 in his last 5 fights, a decision win against Zahabi, a decision loss to Benito Lopez, which I thought he clearly won that fight, a knockout loss to Chris Gutierrez, one of the weirder fights I ever see, where it was that fight where Chris Gutierrez landed like 50 leg kicks on him, And Vince Morales apparently has a wrestling background, did not decide once to shoot a takedown. I'll never get it, but, Gutierrez with that TKO with the leg kicks, beautiful performance by him. Drake Rodriguez decision, and then a knockout win against Luis Smolka. So, how I look at this fight, you're going to have Vince Morales, who's going to have a 1-inch height advantage, a 1-inch reach advantage, but I think it's going to be Wood who has, more tools here. I think Wood on the feet is going to have the volume advantage. He throws a ton of volume, lands over 6 significant strikes per minute. The one thing I do worry about with Wood is going to be the chin. I have seen him hurt in multiple fights. Went back and watched the Johnny Eduardo fight. It looked like Eduardo was like seconds away from getting him out of there. And then, of course, he did get knocked out by John Dodson, I think in the 3rd round, which was not a good look. And he has been knocked out in another fight before the UFC as well. So the chin could be a problem here. But I just think he has more tools on the feet. He's going to have the volume advantage. I think he can get this fight down to the mat. Vince Morales is showing a 50% takedown defense. And once he does get it down to the mat, I think he'll have a massive grappling advantage. I have not liked what I saw from Morales in terms of, him getting on the mat. I remember the Contender Series fight with Domingo Pilarte. Pilarte got him down, took his back right away, and ended up submitting him easily. I think Wood's ground game is legit. I think Wood can take him down and sub him here as well. But if Wood is going to stand and bang with Morales, Morales is going to have opportunities. Morales had not shown it in the UFC up until his last fight against Smolka, but this guy has a ton of power. He has a bunch of knockouts outside of the UFC, but his power finally translated in his last fight against Smolka there. So, yeah, I think Wood's a big favorite. I get why he's a big favorite, but the chin would be my only concern in this matchup. Weezy, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, it's a good fight, man. I watched some tape on both of these guys last night after the event. It's Wood who's got 6 more pro fights, a little more cage time, about 3 more years as a pro. But Morales, 1 more UFC level fight, about 10 more minutes in the UFC cage, and a higher percentage of his career at the UFC level. Morales with a 73% finish rate. Wood with an 82% finish rate, very impressive. And then in these guys, 10 combined losses, 7 of them have been inside the distance. So this could be a sneaky fight doesn't go to decision bet here, as we've seen these guys finish at a very high rate and also get finished at a pretty high rate. And Wood has finished 3 of his 4 wins, and Morales 1 of his 3. So that's 4 of 7 wins in the UFC combined inside the distance, and 3 of 6 combined losses inside the distance. So, like I say, sneaky little bet there on the aggregates, and Wood landing a lot more significant strike attempts than he absorbs. He lands 6.28, absorbs 4.36, and what's also important here is he's throwing 13.58 while his opponents are only throwing 9.4. So 47% striking accuracy. He's landed 1 knockdown, and he's been knocked down once in 6 fights. Morales, who's a boxer first, lands 4.62, absorbs 4.25. He also throws about 2 more significant strikes attempts than his opponents do, at 11.32 for Vince, 9.32 for his opponents. Vince has been knocked down twice in 333 significant strikes absorbed. So it's Wood who's more accurate, but it's Vince who's been a little more powerful, as he's landed 3 knockdowns in 7 UFC fights. And he caught Smolka there with a shot that Smolka just didn't see coming. He kind of came right over with his right hand. Smolka never saw it, and it dropped him. So he's got good striking, and so does Wood. But like people were talking about, Wood's defense in the Eduardo fight. That was his UFC debut. Yeah, he got caught by a Muay Thai striker who is a striker first, but he wound up being able to come back from getting rocked there. And then he started landing some good shots of his own, and then got the sub in the second. But when you go past that fight, Brady, in particular, the Castaneda fight is very important. Watch how much better Wood is defensively, and watch why he's better defensively. He's never stops moving his feet there. He's circling left. He's circling right. He's in. He's out. He's cutting angles. He's switching stances. He's using all of his weapons. He's really evolved as a striker, and his defense has evolved. It's a 53.74% striking defense on the aggregate, but it's been getting better. And I think that he's really coming into his own in how he uses his footwork offensively and defensively. In this grappling numbers, Vince Morales has only attempted 4 takedowns in 7 UFC fights. And it's kind of curious because you were mentioning that Um, this guy, Vince, was an Idaho State champion wrestler, and he doesn't use it. He's only gotten one takedown in 7 fights, and then he's showing 50% takedown defense. You would think that somebody that won state in high school would be a little more defensively responsible with his takedown defense, but it's just not the case. However, Vince has only been controlled for 6% of his UFC career. So I think that that's important to note here, as he's really only been controlled for 5 minutes off of 7 takedowns. So that's pretty good. Vince does get taken down, but he doesn't really get held down. So that's going to be important because he does want to strike. About 92% of his fights have been at striking distance, while for Wood, it's been about 75%. But Wood, 46% on his takedowns. He's out controlling his opponents at more than a 2-to-1 ratio. He's got really good submissions. He's going to be the more dangerous grappler here without a question. And I think that, Vince taking this fight on short notice, them being of similar size, Wood being probably faster and more defensively responsible with his feet. I think Wood's going to be better everywhere here. And outside of a lucky shot, I think Nathaniel Wood's going to cruise. And even when you look at the wins and the strength of schedule, Brady, they're very similar. But Wood is still slightly beating the better competition and fighting the more experienced competition and losing the more experienced competition. So, I do like Wood quite a bit here in this spot.
Yep, as do I. Like I said, I think Wood should be the clear minute winner here. I think he has more paths to victory. I think he can take down Morales and potentially submit him. And we see that he's a big favorite, open at minus 210. He is currently minus 275. Again, another guy that looks like a very popular parlay piece this week, and I don't hate it. Vince Morales opened up plus 180, currently plus 235. And, as you mentioned, this could be a very sneaky fight doesn't go to decision bet. And that was actually something I noticed as well in terms of the finishes. And I actually do see this finishing. And like you said, we see that Wood, 82% finish rate, Morales, 73%. And then Wood's been finished 4 out of his 5 losses, including 2 by knockout. And Morales has been submitted 2 times, knocked out once in his 5 losses. They have the fight doesn't go to decision at minus 115. I don't hate that. What about you? You like that line?
What is it?
Minus 115.
Yeah, I like it. Got a similar line when I parlayed the Canetti Montino fight doesn't go to decision for, a similar reason. 10 of their 11 combined losses had been inside the distance. And here we got a similar thing. 4 of 5 for Wood and 3 of 5 for Morales, so 70% chance. And then these guys are finishing, at a good rate, both of them. 82% for Wood, 73% for Morales. So when I can get it at close to even, that's a pretty good bet. It's a bet that I like to make. I made the similar bet with Camuela Kirk and Damon Jackson fight not going to decision for 0.75 units this week, because these guys are finishers, but they also get finished in their losses.
Yep, and when there's lines like that, you got to take advantage. And like you said last week, stay away from the minus 750 fight doesn't go to decisions. But when you get around the pick'em, minus 120, I think those are definitely something to look at. But yeah, it looks like we are both on the Wood side, and potentially the fight doesn't go. Next fight we have Corey McKenna going against Elise Reed. We have Corey McKenna, 22 years old, 5'3", with a 58-inch reach. Elise Reed, 29 years old, 5'3", with a 61.5-inch reach. So it's going to be Reed who's going to have a 3.5-inch reach advantage. So we do see that Corey McKenna beat Vanessa Demopoulos on the Contender Series there, won by decision, and then she beat Kay Hansen in a very close fight in her debut as well. She is 4-1 in her last 5 fights. Elise Reed, she is 4-1 in her last 5 fights as well, made her debut up a weight class against CR Eubanks, and then she got TKO'd in the first round. So yeah, we have a striker versus grappler matchup here, and I really like what I see from Corey McKenna. And what I also like is she's going to be 22 years old. She has not fought in over a year. I do expect her to make a lot of improvements, especially taking a look and seeing who she's training with. She's training at Team Alpha Male. And if you go look through her Instagram, she's training with fighters like Yan Zhaonan. She's training with fighters like Verna Jandaroba. She's training with fighters like Macy Barber. Fighters like Sarah McMahon. She's training with some of the best female fighters in the world, and I really like that for her. She's a very, very good grappler. Her grappling is her bread and butter, and when I went to look into this fight, I wanted to see how good is her wrestling, because in the Kay Hansen fight, she didn't really show it off. In the Demopoulos fight, she didn't really need to show it off. Demopoulos will just flop to her back. But I went back and watched a lot of her fights, and actually her entire career, and her wrestling was a lot better than I expected it to be. She has very nice entries. I saw her, pick up fighters and slam them, and it's pretty crazy to say that because some of the fights I was watching, she was like 18, 19 years old. And again, she's only getting better. I think the striking's starting to come along here. And I really like what I see. So she's going to be fighting Elise Reed here, who is very small for the division. I did see she fought at atomweight earlier in her career. McKenna's pretty small as well, but Elise Reed, she has a decent amount of power for the division. I'd say decent striking as well. It's just the ground game that I think is going to get her in a lot of trouble here. I don't like what I see from the takedown defense, and not even in the Eubanks fight. There was other fights like in the Jasmine fight. Jasmine was able to take her down pretty easily, and I've seen her put in a lot of really, really bad spots on the mat where maybe she was able to get out of them against lesser grapplers, but Corey McKenna is a legit grappler, and I think if she gets Reed in some of those same positions, she's going to finish the fight. I actually like McKenna to finish this fight. I think she's going to take down Reed. I think she's going to submit her in this fight. Reed, I believe, just got her white belt a couple of years ago. McKenna is a purple belt. And again, her grappling is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. So on the feet, I think it's close and competitive. I think you have to kind of favor Reed. I don't think it's like a big disparity in the striking, but I would favor Reed there. But I just think on the grappling, it's just levels above in terms of McKenna being the better grappler. So give me McKenna here to win. Give me McKenna to win by like a submission at some point in this fight. Weezy, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, great fight. McKenna's 7 years younger, but it's going to be Reed who has that reach advantage. But McKenna, even though she's 7 years younger, she's got the experience advantage here. She's one of these girls, I think, that kind of decided, that she was going to be a mixed martial artist when she was like 13. And I think she comes from a fighting family. And, she got put on that path very young. And when you watch her, like, even make her pro debut, you could tell that she was ready. She was just waiting to turn 18. That was the only thing stopping her from being in the cage with some of these ladies. And even her regional scene footage, Brady, the fighters that she's getting early in her career are legit, like judo black belts, Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belts, wrestlers. And she's outdoing them at their own martial arts. And they're 10, 15 years older than her. It's really impressive. Corey McKenna really impressed me. And we have these stats on Elise Reed, and you kind of just have to throw them out. She took a fight that she should not have taken. That was a huge mistake. She should have never stepped into the cage with Sijara Eubanks. You're talking about a former atomweight stepping in on less than a week's notice against a former bantamweight who's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. And look at the stats. Elise Reed's one fight in the UFC. She's been controlled 96.5%. I mean, come on, man. She shouldn't have taken that fight. So I think it's easy to kind of get out over the skis and not tape Reed and just say she's not ready to be here. I don't think that that's necessarily the case, but I also believe that this is just an absolutely horrible matchup for her. She's flying across the pond. She's going to be fighting in Corey McKenna's backyard, even though Corey now trains in the United States. She's from the UK. She's Welsh. So Corey is the much better grappler here. She gets fantastic control, and we've seen her out-control and out-grapple two grapplers in Kay Hansen and Vanessa Demopoulos. So I really fear for Elise Reed's safety on the ground here against Corey McKenna. I already bet Corey McKenna. I parlayed her with somebody that we're going to talk about later on this card. Poppins is going to be taking care of business here. This is a potential ass shaving for me on a card that has quite a few. But, dude, I really like Corey McKenna in this spot.
Yeah, I think it's a good spot for her for sure. This was one I had circled to look into early because the line really stuck out. Kind of put it off a little bit, but once I did get around to it, I did bet Corey McKenna last week at minus 200. We see that she opened up minus 180, and she's currently minus 235. I do expect that line to keep getting wider and wider once people take a look at Reed's horrendous ground game. But with the fight goes to decision is minus 190, and the fight doesn't go to decision is plus 150. I actually can see this finishing. I mean, I'm personally picking McKenna to win by submission. I know Reed has some power. But yeah, just give me the McKenna money line. And then also I'll be looking out for that McKenna by submission prop.
Yeah, and I mean, I also want to say that I'm not even sure Elise Reed's better on the feet here, to be honest with you. I mean, like Corey McKenna is a very complete mixed martial artist. Her striking was good from day one. She's got amateur experience as well. She's been training at Alpha Male for a long time. Elise Reed's, a good stand-up fighter, and she's got fast hands, good leg kicks, things like that. But I think that this would be 50-50 if it was a 15-minute striking match. And I'm not even joking about that. Corey's striking is legit. She's here for a reason. I hate this matchup for Reed. I'm going McKenna all day. McKenna by sub. McKenna inside the distance. Parlay the money line. I'm all over Corey McKenna this week.
Let's do it. Can't wait for that fight. Let's keep moving on through these. We have Mike Grundy going against Makwan Amarkani. We have Mike Grundy, who is 35 years old, 5'7" with a 72-inch reach. Amarkani, 33 years old, 5'10" with a 72-inch reach. Amarkani, 2 years younger, 3-inch height advantage as well. Mike Grundy, 3-2 in his last 5 fights, made his debut against Nad Narimani, won by knockout. A decision loss to Mozvar Evelev, no shame in that, and then a decision loss against Lando Venata. Makwan Amarkani, 1-4 in his last 5 fights, a knockout loss to Shane Burgos, a submission win against Danny Henry, a decision loss to Edson Barbosa, Kamela Kirk, and Lerone Murphy. And yeah, this is a fight I definitely need to look into a little bit more, but we have 2 guys here that are going to wrestle, 2 guys that have not shown the best gas tank whatsoever, 2 guys that don't have the best striking in the world. I think this is on paper a pretty competitive fight. Weezy, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, very interesting fight. Love the matchmaking here. I think this is a fight where both of these guys are going to get the fight that they want, and we're going to get to see both of these guys at their best here. But it just, when you look at the numbers, Makwan is younger, he's taller, he's a southpaw. He's got 8 more pro fights, about 70 more minutes in the pro cage, about 4 more years as a pro. He's fought a much higher percentage of his career at the UFC level. He's got 8 more UFC level fights. He's got about 70 more minutes in the UFC cage. The finish rates are very, very similar for both of these guys in their wins. And they're getting finished in a similar amount of their percentage of their losses as well. So Grundy is getting outlanded on the feet by a lot. He lands 2.14. He absorbs 4.56. Huge red flag. However, he's 46% accurate. He's landing a knockdown on over 1% of the significant strikes that he's landed. So he's landed 1 knockdown in 3 fights. 56% striking defense. He's never been knocked down. Amirkhani has 1 knockdown in 11 fights. Just a little less accurate on the aggregate and a little less powerful on the aggregate. He lands 1.37, absorbs 2.43, 51.72% striking defense, and he's been knocked down, it looks like 6 times in 11 fights, Makwan Amirkhani. He's been knocked down on 2.26% of the total significant strikes that he's absorbed. So, yeah, if this wound up being a 15-minute boxing match, it would be a crying shame, Brady. When you look at those numbers, I don't know who would win minutes, but it would probably be Amirkhani that would be a lot more chinny. But then again, I think that was Edson Barbosa that was knocking him down over and over again. Mike Grundy is not Edson Barbosa. But and we look at the wrestling numbers here. About 7 takedown attempts per fight for Amirkhani. How about 13 takedown attempts per fight for Mike Grundy. So these guys are both selling out for the wrestling. They're both trying to out-control their opponents. Grundy out-controlling his opponents 15.7% to 3%. And Makwan out-controlling his opponents 36% to 20%. So, Amirkhani not real efficient. He tries about 10 takedown attempts for every 1 his opponents try, yet he's not even out-controlling his opponents 2-to-1 ratio. So that's a little bit of a problem. But, both of these guys are getting plenty of takedowns. The reason I like Amirkhani here is he's fighting and beating, or I should say he's fighting the more experienced brand of competition here on the aggregate. he's beating the more experienced brand of competition on the aggregate, and he's losing the much better competition as well, even though we've got a loss to Evloev for Grundy. So it looks pretty close, but I like a lot of the things that I see from Amirkhani. And here's the thing about Amirkhani. Where he's most dangerous, Brady, is when you start trying to take him down and you get into that front choke series where he can start setting up those Bravos, those Darces, those Anaconda chokes that he's known for. And Grundy being such a folk-style wrestler, a freestyle wrestler, I could see him getting caught up in Amirkhani's front choke series here. I think Amirkhani is going to be able to use that aggressive Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu game to potentially catch a submission here. And I think Grundy's wrestle first game plan is going to make him, more likely to get subbed here. What do you think?
I think this is 1-800 gambler. There's no way I'm betting on either of these guys. I mean, even a Makwan fight in general, I just don't want to put my money on it. So I'm going to pass on this one. I just don't even really want to bet anything, like any props as well. I mean, we have Grundy, he is the favorite, opened at -110, currently -135. Makwan opened at -110, currently +115. The fight goes to decision -150. The fight doesn't go as +110. And like you said, I mean, this potentially could be a 15-minute fight where neither guys go for takedowns. It could be a weird fight. This is a really weird fight in general. So I want nothing to do with it. It's a pass for me. Anything stick out to you? The money lines, the fight goes or fight doesn't go?
I kind of like Makwan at plus money here, to be honest with you. If this fight does stay on the feet, Makwan's going to be 3 inches taller. He's going to be the southpaw. He's fought the much better strikers. He's way more experienced. He's fought the better competition over that stretch. In terms of how these guys finish fights, it's almost exactly the same way. So I think they have like the same distinctive competencies. It's just that Grundy's a little more of a minute winner on the ground. He gets submissions, but it's Makwan that's the higher level submission artist here. So I kind of like that plus 115 on Makwan Amirkhani. Other than that, gonna probably stay away from the time props here. Might look at a Makwan by sub prop. That might be interesting. Grundy's only finish loss was by submission. So that might be how I look at this.
Corello saying, who has the worst gas tank, Amirkhani or Grundy? I think it's a tough question because I've seen them both gas out quite a bit.
Yeah, keep in mind when you say Grundy's gassing that he's attempting 13 takedowns per fight, So, yeah, he's gonna gas. I mean, when you push that kind of a pace, it's inevitable. It's gonna happen. So probably, whoever pushes the pace more is the one that's going to be the first one to gas out, and that'll probably be Grundy.
Yeah, we'll see, man. I think it's a very, very, very weird fight that I want nothing to do with. But it looks like you're leaning on Amirkhani. I'm not going to give a pick yet. I need to look into it a little bit more. But should be an interesting fight, including this next one. We have Muhammad Mokaev going against Cody Durden. Mokaev, he is 21 years old, 5'7". Not sure on the reach. Durden, 30 years old, 5'7", with a 67-inch reach. So yeah, Mokaev is going to be 9 years younger. We'll take a look at their last few fights. We have Mokaev, who is 4-0 in one contest in his last 5 fights. And then we have Cody Durden, who is 3-1 and 1 draw in his last 5 fights. Debut was a draw against Chris Gutierrez, and he went out there and got a 10 in that first round, lost the second and third. Then he lost by submission against Jimmy Flick, and then he won a decision against Archie Lang. Very, very competitive fight there. So, it will say 7 pro fights for Mokaev, but this guy has one of the biggest amateur careers I've seen, like 22 or 23 amateur fights, and he's undefeated. This guy's never lost between, I think it's like a combined 27, 28 combined pro and amateur fights. This guy is legit to me. He's a prospect that a lot of people are talking about. A lot of people are getting excited about. He's a very popular parlay piece this week, and I see why. I went and watched this guy, and I was like, man, he's good. I mean, this guy is going to be a problem, man. It's crazy to say that he's only 21 years old, but you watch this guy, he doesn't look green. He's going out there, he's fighting smart. He's showing things I like to see in great fight IQ, great cardio, which I think is very important in this matchup because Cody Durden has about a round of cardio, whereas Mokaev, I've seen him wrestle very hard for 3 rounds and look like he could go like another 3 at the end of the fight. So good cardio, good fight IQ. The wrestling is top notch. This guy's wrestling is no joke. And on top of that, when he gets guys down, they're typically not getting up. Not much of a finisher. Haven't seen a ton of finishing ability, but Phenomenal minute winner, phenomenal wrestling, phenomenal top control. I think this guy's the real deal, and the sky's the limit for this Mokaev guy. So, yeah, I like Mokaev. I see that he's a big favorite. I think it's well deserved. I think if this guy was, maybe even more well known, if he was on the Contender Series, especially if people knew more about him, I think he'd be even a bigger favorite here. But I just think people don't really know much about him, and I think he's going to show some people who he is here. And I think it's a great matchup here against Cody Durden. And Weezy, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, great fight. Durden, props to him for taking this fight against, one of the most hyped prospects that we've seen come into the UFC probably since Khamzat Chimaev. They both came out of Brave, and they both, were the heir apparent. They were both just guys who it was really hard not just to find a situation where they lost a round, because you weren't going to find that. It was hard to find 10-second stretches where they were losing like that long. When you watch the tape on Mokaev, you really don't see him losing anywhere. And everything that he brings into the cage with him, the cardio, the wrestling, the fight IQ, the ability to be able to use that wrestling to win minutes and be safe defensively. The cardio to push that pace for as long as it takes. The ability to be able to break people. Everything is there. And it's a great first fight because you look at Durden in 3 UFC fights, 25 takedown attempts. He's gotten 9 of them. He's out controlling his opponents 39.5% to 7%. So he's doing a lot of the things that Mokaev already has shown that he can do well. It's just that, you can watch, there's like highlight tapes of Mokaev that last for about 3.5 minutes. And you're like, holy shit. I just saw him get 80 takedowns in those 3.5 minutes. How is that even possible? And you're like, are they showing the same takedowns over and over again? No, they're not. There's suplexes. There's single legs. There's blast double legs. There's, he picks guys up and then walks them all the way across the cage to his corner and dumps them in his corner and just does work for the rest of the round. He's like corkscrewing dudes. He's using trips and sweeps and reaps as well. Like arm drag takedowns. Like every possible wrestling takedown, this guy's getting it. It's one of those situations. This will probably be the last time you're getting Mokaev at -500 or better until he starts fighting top 10 guys. Boy, Cody's got his work cut out for him here, man. It's going to be a good step up in competition for Mokaev for sure. But Durden's flying across the pond here, going to be fighting Mokaev in his backyard, going to be trying to out-wrestle one of the best wrestling prospects that this sport has seen, like I said, since Chimaev. So, boy, Cody Durden, boy, you got your work cut out for you on Saturday, brother.
Yeah, Capper brings up a legitimate question. Who is Mokaev's best win? And I will argue, who is Cody Durden's best win? Archie Lang, and I don't even think he won that fight. But yeah, this will, I guess, be a step up for Mokaev, right?
It is. But you got to remember, it's like, look, it's one thing when even AJ Fletcher, for instance, on Saturday, like the first 6 guys that he beat, right, had like an 0-50 record combined. But what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to beat those guys. You can go and watch all the amateur footage out there on Mokaev. Believe me, it's available. Find me a minute that he lost. Find me 1 minute where you're like, holy shit, he was in trouble. Or that guy took him down and really had a deep submission attempt there. You're not going to find it anywhere. So he needs a step up. He's begging for a step up. And I guarantee you when he gets that step up, he's going to make that dude look like an amateur. I parlayed Mokaev with McKenna. I'm already spending the money on that ticket. It's gonna cash. So I'm looking for Mokaev. I'm expecting big things out of him. And I think we're gonna have our next big wrestling prospect here.
I like it, and yeah, I don't typically do parlays. I've been trying to stay away from, but I did parlay Mokaev earlier today, and I feel comfortable about that. We see that Mokaev opens up -180. He is currently -330. And then Durden opens up +155. He is currently +270. I do expect that to keep getting wider. The fight goes to decision +155. The fight doesn't go to decision is -155. Not really feeling the time props. I kind of am feeling a Mokaev decision, maybe sub, but I'll say Mikhaev decision for me in a parlay piece as well.
Yeah, agreed. Mikhaev does seem perfectly happy just dominating every second of the fight. And if you give up and you give him your neck, he'll sub you. If you don't fight back against the ground and pound, he'll knock you out on the ground. And if you do, he'll just ride you out for the full 15 minutes and you might not even win 10 seconds. So however you want to give it to Muhammad, that's how he's going to take it.
There we go. I like it. We're both on the same page there. Let us move on to the next fight. We have Molly McCann going against Luana Carolina. We have Molly McCann, 31 years old, 5'4", with a 62-inch reach. Luana Carolina, 28 years old, 5'6", with a 69-inch reach. So Molly McCann's going to be at a 2-inch height disadvantage and a 7-inch reach disadvantage. And Carolina will also be 3 years younger. So massive tail of the tape advantage going to Luana Carolina. Let's take a look at their last 5 fights. Molly McCann, 3-2. In her last 5 fights, a decision win against Ariana Lipski, decision win against Diana Belbita, decision loss to Tala Santos, a decision loss to Laura Procopio, and a decision win against Ji-Young Kim. As far as Luana Carolina, I believe she made her debut against Priscilla Ketchabeating, and she won that fight by decision. Went back and watched that fight today. She actually knocked down Priscilla Ketchabeating, which was very impressive to me. I think it was a head kick. It was very close to getting her out of there. She does lose to Ariana Lipski by an early submission. She beats Poliana Botelho by a close decision there, and then just recently beats Lupi Godinez by decision as well. And yeah, this is a very close fight. I do see that is lined very close. I see this probably going to decision. Pretty much a coin flip for me because you're going to have Molly McCann. She's going to be coming forward where, her home crowd, she's going to be cheering her. They're going to be cheering her on. She's probably going to be doing a lot of yelling, a lot of screaming, saying, let's go, pumping up the crowd. The judges are probably going to like that. She's going to eat a lot of punches. She absorbs like almost 5 significant strikes per minute. Carolina's kind of going to be on the back foot. She's going to be, probably landing a lot more, but it's going to be Molly with the pressure. I think it's a close fight. I think McCann will not be successful with takedowns. I know she's went for 34. She does have a 32% takedown accuracy, but I really do like what I see from the takedown defense of Carolina. It is 88%, a lot of that because of the Godinez fight. Godinez did come up on short notice, up a weight class, but still, I thought her takedown defense looked really good. So I see this standing for 15 minutes. You have the pressure of Molly. You have the home crowd of Molly. But I really like what I see from Carolina in terms of the striking, great Muay Thai as well, lots of volume. It's a pretty close fight, Weezy. Which way you lean on this one?
Yeah, I'm leaning that I'm going to really enjoy this fight. Molly McCann fighting in front of her home crowd is always incredible to watch. She's super fun. She always brings a fight with her. And Luana, I've got a lot of respect for her. And, her only loss in the last 5 fights was that weird-ass knee bar to Ariane Lipski that was just a completely odd way for a fight to get finished. If it weren't for that fluke, weird-ass submission, she could be 5-0 in her last 5 fights. She's legit, man. This is a tough matchup. But, when you talk about a 7-inch reach advantage, that is something that's going to be very, very useful when your opponent doesn't walk forward. When your opponent will stay at range and play a point fighting match with you. That's never been Molly McCann. She walks forward. She's been at a reach disadvantage before. Most recently in the last fight against Ji-Young Kim, she was at a 10-inch reach disadvantage in that fight. So she knows how to close distance here. And she lands almost one more significant strike than she absorbs. She shows 65% striking defense. So even though her opponents throw a lot more volume than Molly does, she's still outlanding them at a good percentage because she's way more accurate and a lot more defensively responsible than her opponents are. Luana Carolina, though, is even better with the striking ratios, with the accuracy, with the power, just not as defensively responsible. 4.49 landed, only 2.85 absorbed. But Luana throws a lot more volume. So, this could be a situation where Molly, if she's not defensively responsible, she's going to be getting outthrown and outlanded here and from a distance. So she's going to probably not be able to be that defensively responsible, Brady. She's going to have to walk forward, maybe block a few punches with her face in order to get inside on Luana. But I think that that's where she's going to be at her safest. Molly does get wrestling, but look at that. 34 takedowns in 34 takedown attempts in 7 fights. So she's an active wrestler. But she's only controlled her opponents about 8 minutes off of those 34 takedown attempts and off of those 11 takedowns. So she's not somebody that wins a lot of minutes with her wrestling. She will get the occasional takedown, and if it's a very close round, that takedown could be enough to win the round. But, if you're saying that Molly McCann's going to have to go out there and win 3 rounds with her wrestling, you're probably not going to be cashing that ticket because she doesn't win a ton of minutes with her wrestling. She has to win striking exchanges in order to be successful. And Luana has been has done a fantastic job with her defensive grappling, Brady. Only 1 takedown attempt for Luana Carolina in 5 fights, but she's had 26 attempted against her. Yet somehow she's only been out-controlled by 7% by her opponents. So she's very good with her takedown defense. She successfully defended 23 of 26 takedown attempts, and she's been controlled for 21.77% of her 61 minutes in the cage. So that would be about 12 minutes of control time on only 3 takedowns. So when you can get her down, you can hold her there and win minutes there, but it's very difficult to get her there. On the aggregate, McCann's fighting and beating the slightly better competition here. So the strength of schedule is very close for these two. I think that Carolina is going to be the better striker here, and I think she's going to be able to prevent Molly McCann from winning minutes in the striking exchanges. Can she fight off her back foot? Can she keep her feet moving for the entire fight and use that distance and maintain that distance and land the bigger shots? I think so, but Molly McCann is always a game opponent. Probably see this one going to decision. If you have a strong lean one way or another, I would bet them to win by decision to get a little bit better than what the line is currently, which is pretty close to even.
Yeah, I won't be betting this fight. It's a close fight. I did bet Molly McCann against Jeong Kim. I think it was close to even as well. And I bet Molly McCann in that fight because I thought Molly would be able to, wrestle Kim and get her down. Kim had at the time, I think it was like something crazy, like a 40% takedown defense, something like that. And Molly McCann was not successful in doing so. She still won, but I kind of expected her to have success with the takedowns. Whereas here, I really don't think she'll have success in terms of taking down Carolina on the feet. Carolina is going to have a 7-inch reach advantage. I think that's huge to note, but it's a close fight. I think it really could go either way. I think a pick'em is about right on this one. We see that Molly McCann opened up minus 150, went all the way to plus 110. She is back down to minus 130. Luana Carolina opened up plus 130, instantly went to minus 130, and she is back to plus 110. Yeah, I think it should be a pick'em. I think more money might come in on Molly as the week goes on. She's always a very popular bet, it seems like, each and every time out, fan favorite even, and we are going to be fighting in front of her home crowd. So over 2.5, minus 300, under 2.5, plus 240. Fight goes to decision, minus 265. Fight doesn't go, plus 185. I think it does go to decision, but those are not enticing to me. Weezy, anything you like on the money lines, or the fight goes or doesn't go?
Yeah, I mean, like minus 265 is not something I'm going to be betting for fight goes to decision, man. So I'll stay away from that. And I don't really like this fight to finish either, so I don't think there's really any value when the fight doesn't go either. So, yeah, I'll probably be looking, if this line gets out of whack and Luana gets us some serious plus money, I'll be looking to bet her. I think she's the better striker here, honestly. It's just that flight from Brazil to England is no joke, and you got to remember, that we're going to have a bunch of home fighters on this card and then a bunch of fighters who are making long flights to get there. And when you're betting that fighter that made the long flight, man, it's always something that you got to keep in the back of your mind. It's not easy to make those long flights and then fight, against in a hostile environment.
Yeah, definitely something to note there. F Grill saying 166 in here. If you guys can hit the like button and subscribe, I do agree with F Grill. Appreciate you there. Let's keep moving on to the next fight, and we have Jack Shore going against Timur Valiev. We have Jack Shore, 27 years old, 5'8", with a 71-inch reach. Timur Valiev, he is 32 years old, 5'6", with a 67-inch reach. It's going to be Shore with a 2-inch height advantage, a 4-inch reach advantage, and he's going to be 5 years younger as well. We'll take a look at their last few fights. Jack Shore, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. I think his debut against Nolene Hernandez, won by submission, beat Aaron Phillips by submission, won a split decision against Hunter Azure, and then won by decision against Ludovic Shalinian. Timur Valiev, he is 4-0 and 1 no contest in his last 5 fights. Made his debut against Trevin Jones as a big favorite. He ends up almost knocking out Jones early. I thought the ref could have stopped it there, let it play on, and then Jones knocks him out. In the second round, Valiev pops for some marijuana. Ultimately, it turns into a no contest. Beats Martin Day by decision, and then beats Hayani Barcelos by decision as well. So this is a very high-level fight. Two prospects going against each other. I cannot wait to hear your thoughts on this one, Weezy.
Yeah, this is a crazy one, man. Striker versus grappler. So it's Valiev who's more experienced, 6 more pro fights, 100 more minutes in the pro cage, almost 6 more years as a pro. In terms of UFC experience, it's similar numbers here. Jack Shore finishing 70% of his wins. Timur Valiev finishing 39% of his wins. So it's Shore who's the better finisher. And neither one of these guys has ever been finished in a loss. Shore, very defensively responsible. Lands 4.03 significant strikes per minute, only absorbs 1.51, and he's showing a 66% striking defense. Valiev is a volume monster on the feet. He throws 9.71 while his opponents only throw 5.65 significant strike attempts per minute. He outlands his opponents 5.35 to 2.79 in significant strikes per minute, 55% accurate. 1 knockdown in 3 UFC fights. He's been knocked down, though, 3 times in 3 fights has Timur Valiev. So he is somebody that absolutely can be knocked down on the feet. Will we have to worry about that from Jack Shore? No, because Jack Shore is the kind of guy who just sticks to people like glue. 36 takedown attempts in only 4 fights. He's gotten 15 of them. He's averaging 4.47 takedowns per 15 minutes and getting over 43% control time on his opponents. He's a master of using his grappling to stay defensively responsible and win minutes. While Valiev has done a good job of doing exactly the same thing. He's 4 of 12 on his takedown attempts. He's out-controlling his opponents 32.5% to 6%, but he has been taken down 1 out of 2 times, and he did give up some control time there, a couple minutes of control time on that takedown. That was by Barcelos. So Valiev needs to keep this fight at striking range. We don't have enough here in the strength of schedule numbers to like kind of determine whether these guys have fought the better competition than the other one. But what we do know is that Shore is not beating guys that are UFC level yet. You know, the wins over Shalinian, Azure, Aaron Phillips, Nohelin Hernandez, you know, none of those guys are on Timur Valiev's level. So this is going to definitely be a step up in competition for him. While Valiev was fighting, you know, in PFL prior to coming to the UFC. So he's definitely fought the better competition, the more experienced mixed martial artist. He's the better striker here. It's just that Jack Shore fights a very particular type of fight, and it's a very difficult opponent to plan for. You know what he's going to do, and still you're going to have a very difficult time stopping it. Jack Shore just fights in a phone booth. And if you're not comfortable with that kind of fight, it's going to be a long 15 minutes for you. So Shore's plus money here, though, right now. I think there's a lot of people who think that Valiev is going to be able to keep this fight at striking range. And we do need to keep in mind, you know, that about 45% of Jack Shore's 50 minutes in the cage, you know, which is about 22 and a half minutes, has been spent at striking range. And he'll be losing minutes at striking range with a volume monster and a variety monster like Timur Valiev here. Valiev fought the better competition, beaten the better competition, more experienced, and the better striker here.
Yeah, man, I think I think I might like Valiev here. I think this might be another McKinney situation. You look on Tapology, and I know Valiev is the favorite on the money line, but on Tapology, it's like 82% for Jack Shore. Like, I don't know. I mean, I love Jack Shore a ton, and I was very tempted at that plus number. I think I saw it at like plus 154, but after looking into it, Timur Valiev's no joke. I see why the bookies placed him as a favorite. This guy's striking's phenomenal, tons of volume. He got caught a couple times against Barcelos and Jones, but like you said, Shore's not going to knock him down. So I think, you know, Valiev's going to have a pretty significant striking advantage. And I went back and watched the Hunter Azure fight, and Shore was able to take him down, but that was like a lot closer than I really expected. And at one point, Azure was even able to reverse Shore and get on top and control Shore for like 4 minutes in that fight. And I wanted to see more of Valiev in his takedown defense and his get-up game because we really haven't seen it. The only thing we've seen in the UFC from Valiev was him getting knocked down, almost finished against Barcelos. And then on top of that, Jones did shoot in for a takedown at the end of the first round. But you go back and watch some of his fights outside of the UFC, his scrambling ability is very good to me. I think he's a very solid grappler, very well-rounded as well. And I feel like he can win enough minutes on the feet here and win a very, very competitive decision. But yeah, I'm very high on Shore. I think he's going to make this very close. I think he's going to go for takedowns. But I like Valiev here, I think. And I think I'm going to keep waiting because money is just pouring in on Shore. Like I said, like 82% on Tapology is on Shore. And, rightfully so. I mean, this guy at plus money, we've not seen Shore at plus money yet or anywhere near it because he's fighting guys like Nohelin Hernandez.
Yeah.
He's fighting guys like Aaron Phillips. He's fighting Hunter Azure. In that fight, I think it was like minus 190, minus 180. And then he's fighting Ludovic Shalinian. I had a max bet against Ludovic Shalinian here, but this is a step up to say the least. Where, like you said, Timur Valiev, he's fought good guys inside the UFC and outside. He has 2 fights against Chris Gutierrez. One of his losses come against Chris Gutierrez in a fight where I thought he won, and then he fought him again and he can beat him pretty convincingly there. So yeah, I think this might be a spot where, like last week, McKenny was a very popular dog. I didn't end up pulling the trigger on Dober when I absolutely should have. I think I'm going to sit back, wait, see where this line goes, and maybe get Valiev at potentially plus money by the way this line's coming down. Jack Shore opens up minus 110, instantly goes to plus 150, is now back to plus 125. Valiev opens up minus 110, instantly goes to minus 175, is back to minus 145. I'm going to monitor that line all week. Very curious to see where it goes. The fight goes to decision minus 215. Fight doesn't go to decision, it's plus 165. I don't really want anything to do with the finish props, but I think this does go to decision more often than not.
Agreed. Yeah, I think it will go to decision, but the bookies will probably be on that. Yeah, this is a great striker versus grappler matchup here. I can't wait to see it. Shore's a great prospect, still only 27 years old. So, potentially we could start to see some improvements that we're not expecting out of the Shore side. Maybe the striking will be a lot better this time out. Maybe we'll be able to surprise Valiev a little bit on the feet, but it's a really high-level fight, dude. This card is full of them, and we're still only about halfway through the card yet, and we've already talked about Muhammad Makayev. Grundy Amir Khani is a great fight. McCann Carolina, McKenna Reed. I mean, this is such a great card, dude.
This card is stacked from top to bottom. I told you earlier, it feels like when I was researching this card, it feels like I was researching a pay-per-view. This card is just stacked city. So let's keep moving on. We're at 189 of you in here. If y'all can hit the like button, let's see if we can get to 200. That'd be pretty awesome. And next we have Nikita Krylov going against Paul Craig. I cannot wait for this fight as well. We have Krylov, who is 30 years old, 6'3", with a 77-inch reach. Craig, 34 years old, 6'3", with a 76-inch reach. Krylov's going to be 4 years younger, and Krylov's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage as well. Krylov, he is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. A submission loss against Jan Blachowicz, a submission win against OSP. That was their second fight. In the first fight, OSP did submit him early on in his career with a Von Flue. A decision loss against Glover Teixeira, a decision win against Johnny Walker, and a decision loss against Magomed Ankalaev. Paul Craig, 4-0 in a draw in his last 5 fights. A submission win against Maria, a decision or a draw against Shogun, a submission against Antigulov, a knockout win against Shogun, and then a knockout win against Jamal Hill as well. So yeah, very, very exciting fight. I do think this fight is going to finish one way or another. Both guys are great finishers. Both guys can be finished. And it's just tough to, count out Paul Craig completely in a fight. I think this guy's live in a lot of fights. And I get why he's the dog here. Absolutely should be the dog. But, man, this guy's dangerous anywhere the fight goes. And I feel like, Paul Craig's a guy that he's going to try to find a way to get it to the ground, whether it's him going for takedowns, whether it's him pulling guard. I feel at some point this fight, it probably hits the mat. If I am Krylov, I'm not going to the grappling here, but I kind of have a feeling he will. This is a guy in Krylov who's grappled with guys like OSP. He's grappled with guys like Ankalaev, grappled with guys like Glover Teixeira. This guy is absolutely not scared of going down to the mat with absolute killers. So I kind of have a feeling Krylov is going to at some point engage on the ground with Paul Craig, which might be a mistake. Misha Serkinov submitted him. Jan Blachowicz submitted him. Like I said, OSP submitted him. He has been submitted quite a bit against legit guys, and I do think he's getting better. But if you're Krylov here, the path to victory is stuff the takedowns. If Paul Craig pulls guard, you try to get up and you try to knock this guy out. So it's an interesting fight. I think it's going to be violence, but in terms of picking a winner, I think this is kind of a tricky one. What do you think, Weezy?
It is tricky, you know. I mean, you look and see here, there's a lot of things to like about Krylov. He's 4 years younger. He's got a 1-inch reach advantage. He's got 15 more professional fights, despite the fact that he's the younger fighter here. He's been a pro for a year longer, 22 more minutes in the pro cage, 2 more UFC level fights, a little more time in the UFC cage. Both of these guys are sick finishers. 97% for Krylov, 97%. And then, not to be outdone, Paul Craig comes in with the 100% finish rate. And these guys are getting finished in their losses too. 6 of 8 for Krylov, 4 of 4 for Craig. So yeah, violence is the word here for this particular fight. Krylov's striking number is pretty damn nice, man. 4.33 landed, only 2.52 absorbed, 56% accurate. It looks like he's landed 3 knockdowns in 437 significant strikes landed. He's been knocked down only once in 14 UFC fights. The striking defense is not good, though. 44% for Nikita Krylov. And then Craig lands 2.59, absorbs 2.39. He's a little less accurate, a little more defensively responsible, but he's been knocked down twice in 12 UFC fights. But here's the thing, right? Look at these control time numbers for and against for both Krylov and Craig, right? 61% total for Craig, 68% total for Nikita Krylov. So if you're betting on Krylov and you're saying, I think that he can keep this at striking range and win a striking battle, guys, this fight isn't going to be a striking fight. It's going to the ground. It's going to the ground whether both of these guys like it or not. Both of these guys in a 26-fight combined sample size are spending close to 2/3 of their fights in control time positions for or against. You know, Craig is shooting for over 4 takedown attempts per fight. Krylov about 2 takedown attempts per fight. And Krylov's having about 3 takedowns shot on him per fight. So the other thing about Paul Craig is he doesn't need a takedown to get the fight to the ground. He'll try to take your back standing. He'll pull guard. He doesn't give a shit. He's even better off his back than he is on top. So this fight is going to the ground. And man, if you're on either one of these guys, you probably would want to bet them inside the distance. You know, that'd be a great way to get a little bit of extra money. I think the fight doesn't go to decision should be a good bet for this one. But Paul Craig by submission is always something that you just have to look at. You know, I mean, the way that he locked up that triangle against Ankalaev and made him tap like 3 seconds after he had it locked on just goes to show you, dude. I mean, this guy, it takes that much. It takes that tiny of a mistake anywhere on the mat with Paul Craig, and this guy can lock in a submission. So I really do think that he's very live here at plus money. Take either one of these guys, whichever one you like, inside the distance. I think it'll be a good way to get a little extra leverage against the bookies this week. And I can't wait for this fight. It's another one in a long line of bangers that promises violence, and I can't wait for it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Gorilla's saying Craig's last 2 wins are by KO, but I think Shogun tapped the strikes, didn't he?
He tapped the strikes, and we got a stoppage because of a dislocated elbow due to a submission. So, yeah.
Rest in peace to people who had that ticket on Craig by submission against Hill.
Yeah, Virna Jandiroba by submission against Kaneko Murata. Yeah, it happens every once in a while. You know, the submission is the obvious path, and the gambling gods, they just kind of spit in your face and they say, not this week, nephew.
Yep, for sure. Let's take a look at these odds. And so on FanDuel, Krylov opened up at plus 134. I know a lot of people that jumped on that instantly. And went to minus 146 and is currently at minus 184 and getting wider. But on BetOnline, looking at like minus 175 for Krylov, plus 150 on Craig. The fight goes to decision, plus 125. The fight doesn't go to decision is minus 165. Interesting stuff there. What do you like into this one, Weezy?
I like violence, man. I think I like the fight doesn't go to decision for this one. Craig is just so dangerous on the ground, and Krylov is dangerous everywhere. The guy's always been a finisher ever since day one, and he's been doing this for almost 10 years now, since he was just 20 years old. So yeah, I like violence here. I kind of like that plus money on Paul Craig, man. Nikita Krylov is not the kind of guy that we can count on to make this a striking match. He's always in grappling matches. So great fight. Love it to finish inside the distance. Kind of like the plus money on Craig.
Yeah, I mean, Craig's going to get opportunities here. We see that Krylov has been finished in 8 of his 10 losses, 5 by submission, and Paul Craig does have that 100% finish rate, but Craig getting finished in 100% of his losses. So, yeah, I think it's safe to say someone does get finished here as well. All right, we'll take a look at the next fight here. We have Shamil Abdurakhimov going against Sergey Pavlovich. I think Shamil was supposed to fight Tom Aspinall, but in steps Pavlovich, who we have not seen in a while. Shamil, 40 years old, 6'3", 76-inch reach. Pavlovich, 29 years old, 6'3", with an 84-inch reach. Pavlovich, 11 years younger. That's very significant. And then a very significant 8-inch reach advantage in a fight that's probably going to stay standing. Shamil is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. A knockout win against Chase Sherman, a decision win against Andrei Arlovsky, a knockout win against Marcin Tybura, and a knockout loss against Curtis Blades and Chris Daukaus. As far as Sergey Pavlovich, again, we've not seen him in a while. His last win was against Maurice Green by knockout. He also knocked out Marcelo Golm, and he made his debut against Alistair Overeem and lost by knockout. And I noticed that, and this is a guy that has a lot of hype. A lot of the hype probably died down because we haven't seen him in a while, but there's a lot of hype on this guy. I mean, nobody really makes their debut against Alistair Overeem. And Overeem was able to get him down and then ended up ground and pounding him and getting him out of there. But yeah, I'm glad to see Pavlovich back, and I want to get the exact date on the last time we have seen
10/26/2019. I got it right in front of me. The Maurice Green win was October of 2019.
Oof. So a very long time, which was interesting. That was 2 years and 4 months ago. And he's 29. So last time he fought, he was probably 27, 26. Shamil, he actually took a big layoff. He hadn't fought Blades for he fought Blades 2 years and 6 months ago, and he came back and fought Daukaus 4 months ago. And there was talk with, the collapsed lung thing we talked about on Stat Diggers the last time when he was fighting, and him pulling out a ton of fights. And at this point, he's now 40 years old, and he's not getting any younger. He just got knocked out pretty much twice in his last fight against Daukaus. I thought Mark Smith could have stopped it both times. But, I think it's a good spot for Sergey here. He's training with good guys as well. I like what I'm seeing from him. I guess the layoff is a concern, but the dude's 29. He's young. Younger by 11 years, huge reach advantage as well. I think he probably knocks out Shamil at some point in this fight. I think the cardio of Sergey is pretty good. I've seen him, go to decisions, look pretty good. I'm going to take Sergey Pavlovich here. He's a big favorite. I don't know if I'd touch the line, but I think he probably does knock out the 40-year-old Shamil Abdurakhimov here. What do you think about this one, Weezy?
Yeah, Pavlovich is a huge prospect. And, I think that's kind of been lost on us because it's been so long since we've seen him. But you brought it up. You don't just make your debut against Alistair Overeem unless people are like, this kid is legit. With an 84-inch reach, I think that makes him the biggest reach in the entire UFC. I don't know if anybody has an 84-inch reach in the UFC. This guy's got a head like an Easter Island statue. It's absolutely gigantic. That freak reach. He's a southpaw, and it looks like he was carved out of marble too. He's a really scary dude. And prior to being in the UFC, this guy was like Fight Night's global champion, and I think he defended his belt like 3 or 4 times. I mean, beating legitimate competition. This dude is scary. He's flat out scary. And and Shamil, we kind of know what Shamil is at this point. He's a UFC level heavyweight who is good everywhere but spectacular nowhere. He looks great against guys like Chase Sherman, and he looks predictably outgunned against guys like Derek Lewis. Like, he wasn't even engaging Derek Lewis unless he was on top of him. But he fights smart. He'll take the path of least resistance. He tries to Shamil tries to get you into a staring contest, a low volume staring contest. And if he's successful in doing that, he's going to be the more accurate boxer, and he's going to be probably the guy landing the harder, cleaner shots. But the problem is I don't really see that working against Pavlovich. and we haven't seen Shamil really successfully be able to wrestle anybody besides Derek Lewis at this level. And outside of that, I mean, I've even seen Sergey on the regional scene stop like 8 takedowns from a Sambo world champion. So yeah, it's hard to see, the 40-year-old coming off the punctured lung who, it kind of needs to get the guy to fight a fight that makes Shamil comfortable. I don't think Shamil is going to be comfortable anywhere here, you guys. And then you look at the strength of schedule. Shamil has fought and beaten the better experienced, more experienced competition here, but really on the regional scene, it's close. And if Shamil's not able to take this guy down, I just don't see where he's going to win minutes here. Sergey will be landing the bigger shots on the feet. He probably will stop any takedowns that Shamil tries. And I think he's just way, way, way more powerful here. Yeah, Sergey inside the distance by knockout.
Yep, sounds good to me. Sergey is a big favorite, open at minus 275, currently minus 300. Shamil opened up plus 235, currently plus 250. The fight goes to decision plus 285, and the fight doesn't go to decision is minus 405, which is unbettable for me. But I think this fight does finish Sergey by knockout. Could be something to look at.
For me, that would be a fight goes to decision bet because Abdurakhimov is the kind of guy who can hypnotize you. And, minus 400 for a fight doesn't go is just kind of unbettable. So, hopefully that just keeps going and we can get something a little bit better at the end of the week to just bet fight goes because as dangerous as Pavlovich is, this guy doesn't finish. He's a 79% finisher on the aggregate. And, he's got really good cardio. Shamil might make it easy for him to win a decision here. So I wouldn't touch the fight doesn't go at that line. It's just way too wide.
Absolutely not. It's crazy to me that Shamil Sergey is minus 405 fight doesn't go, and Craig Nikita is minus 165. Just kind of crazy to me there.
Makes no sense to me, dude. Not a lick of sense.
Not a lick, but we'll keep moving on. We're actually doing really good on time. This might be the shortest stat diggers ever. We'll move on to our next fight. We have Gunnar Nelson going against Takashi Sato. We have Gunnar Nelson making his big return. 33 years old, 5'11", with a 72-inch reach. And we do see that Takashi Sato is coming in on short notice here. I think he was supposed to fight, Gunnar Nelson was supposed to fight Claudio Silva. I think like 41-year-old Claudio Silva would have been a great matchup. But yeah, in steps Sato, short notice, 31 years old, 5'10", with a 73-inch reach. So Sato, 2 years younger. He's going to be at a 1-inch height disadvantage, but a 1-inch reach advantage. So the last time we did see Gunnar Nelson fight was 2 years and 4 months ago. It has been a while, and he lost to decision against Gilbert Burns. Prior to that, he lost by decision to Leon Edwards. So as you can see, he is fighting legit competition. Beat Alex Oliveira by submission, and then got knocked out by Santiago Ponzinibbio. I believe that was his only knockout loss in his career, and then submitted Alonzo Bon as well. Sato, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. I made his debut, I think it was against Ben Saunders, won by knockout there. He lost by submission against Bilal Muhammad, knocked out Jason Witt, and then submitted by Miguel Baez in his last fight. So, on paper, this feels like Gunnar Nelson all day, very easy, but there are some red flags with Nelson not fighting in like 2.5 years. I don't like that, but on paper, like Gunnar Nelson should take him down and submit him. Sato, I believe, has been submitted 3 times, 2 in the UFC. Baeza, that was actually Baez's first submission win ever, and then Muhammad was able to take him down a couple times in their fight, ultimately finish him in the 3rd round. I just think Gunnar Nelson's grappling is on a completely different level than Sato here. I think 1 takedown is probably all it takes. But with that said, Gunnar Nelson, the long layoff, Sato does have a lot of power, but I see why Gunnar Nelson is a big favorite here. Will I be touching it? Probably not, but I think it's a good matchup for him. Weezy, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, Nelson's more experienced here. He's got 4 more fights, about 45 more minutes in the cage, about almost 6 more years or more than 6 more years as a pro. Much higher percentage of his career at the highest level, about 100 more minutes in the UFC cage, 95% finish rate in 17 wins for Gunnar Nelson, and he's durable. He's only been finished in 1 of 5 losses. So Sato is going to be at an experience disadvantage here. He's going to be at a height disadvantage. and he's going to be at a grappling disadvantage here. Takashi's got good judo, but Gunnar's BJJ is next level. On the feet, Takashi's got some power. He's got a nice 1-2 that comes right down the pipe, and he's a southpaw, so it's a straight left that's very dangerous. Separated Jason Witt from his consciousness quite quickly. But Gunnar's interesting, because he kind of brings that karate style. So he fights out of both stances as well. So he does a pretty good job of maintaining distance and using those entries to get to the grappling. 55.56% takedown percentage over 13 fights. Out controlling his opponents 28.7% to 16.28%. And that's saying something because he's faced some really good grapplers. So he's almost out controlling his opponents at a 2-to-1 ratio here. Gunnar's fought the better competition, beaten the better competition, lost to the better competition here. It's going to be Gunnar Nelson probably. And, you hate to see Sato take this fight on short notice too, but the thing that makes it a stay away for me is just, I don't know what the hell happened to Gunnar Nelson. Why hasn't he fought since 2019? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I don't know.
What happened there? Was it injuries? Was he retired and then decided to come back? I don't know why he's been gone for this long. It's the kind of thing. He's 33, so he's not old for the division yet. But you shouldn't be taking 2 years off in this sport. This sport moves quickly. Back when Gunnar Nelson was fighting, people were barely using calf kicks. It just changes a lot. You could be, you remember some of these Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belts from 2015. Now a lot of those guys, their jiu-jitsu wouldn't even be special today, because you don't see people getting certain submissions anymore. Everything evolves in this sport. The athletes evolve, the game plans evolve. Even the judging and rules evolve. So I don't know why Gunnar's been off for this long. I think he should cruise here, but I don't know where this dude's at. This is kind of like a stay away from me.
Yeah, it's definitely a stay away from me as well, especially when you take a look at the line. Gunnar Nelson opened up -300, -360, and Sato opened up +250, and he's +295. If we get the best version of Gunnar Nelson, he should run through this guy, no problem. But the layoff is something to mention for sure. The fight goes to decision, +170. The fight doesn't go, is +230. This was something I was looking at to see the line for the fight doesn't go, but looks like they're kind of all over it here at -230.
Yeah, Sato's been finishing 100% of his losses, and then you got these guys who are crazy good finishers here. I think 13 of 15 for Sato and 16 of 17 for Gunnar Nelson. So that's 29 of 32 inside the distance, over 90% in their wins. And then, so if you like Nelson, maybe just bet him inside the distance because he's 95% in his wins, and Sato gets finished in 100% of his losses. So if you don't want to pay -350, maybe that's the way to get Gunnar at a more reasonable price where you don't necessarily have to parlay him. If we get the best version of Gunnar Nelson, he'll probably look -350.
Oh, yeah.
But that's a big if, and I just can't lay -350 on somebody that has been gone for over 2 years at this point. It's just odd.
Yeah, but it kind of reminds me of the Chaz Skelly fight where Skelly took a layoff. He was hurt or whatever, talking about retirement, tons of question marks. I bet him inside the distance against Striegel rather than laying the -200. Gunnar Nelson, hopefully it's around plus money inside the distance. Like you said, a 95% finish rate. Sato been submitted 3 times, knocked out once, finishing all his losses. I think, Nelson inside the distance might be the move here. So hopefully get a good line on that. We will keep moving on, just surpassed the 200 mark. Appreciate all you guys hanging out on a Sunday night. We do go live every Sunday night, 7:15 p.m. Eastern time. You guys can hit the like button. We do appreciate that a lot. We have 3 fights left to go through. Paddy Pimblett going against Kazulo Vargas. We have Paddy Pimblett, 27 years old, 5'10", with a 73-inch reach. Vargas, 36 years old, 5'8", with a 71-inch reach. Pimblett going to be 9 years younger, and he's also going to have a 2-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage as well. So tail the tape massively in favor of Paddy Pimblett. As far as the last couple of fights, Pimblett did make his debut against Luigi Vendermini. Very, very exciting fight for as long as it lasts. Got a knockout there, and he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. And he has fought some good competition outside the UFC as well. I saw him fight Julian Erosa and won by decision there. Was able to take him down. He looked pretty good, and he's a good fighter, and people are really excited about this guy. A lot of hype on this guy, and rightfully so. I think he's pretty solid. Cazula Vargas, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He made his debut against Alex de Silva. I'll talk more about that fight, as I do think it's pretty concerning pertaining to this matchup, especially the DQ loss against Brock Weaver in a fight where he was winning, and then he kneed poor Brock Weaver in the head while he was down, got disqualified there, and then he beats Rong Zhu by decision. So yeah, back to that Silva fight, and why I think this is a really good matchup for Pimblett, and rightfully so. Pimblett's one of the biggest favorites on the card. In that fight, Vargas was taken down pretty much in every single round. I know the third round, it looked kind of like a knockdown. I'm not sure if they credited Silva with a knockdown. They did not, but he looked like he knocked him down, and Silva was able to control Vargas for a concerning 12 minutes and 1 second in that fight. And, I have not liked what I saw in terms of the takedown defense of Vargas. He kind of just gives up the takedowns. He looks very confident off his back, which is not going to work here. I believe he is a black belt in BJJ, but I just don't think he's the same level as a Paddy Pimblett. I mean, Alex de Silva was able to just take him down easily, control him, and that was that. Even Rong Zhu was able to take him down 3 times as well. I think Paddy Pimblett can come out here, get takedowns pretty easily, control Vargas, potentially even finish him on the mat. I just don't think Vargas, honestly, is UFC caliber. 36 years old, has not shown really anything that great thus far in his career in the UFC. I think Paddy Pimblett, takes this one and takes this one pretty easily. I just don't see many paths to victory for Vargas. Is Vargas going to submit Paddy Pimblett off his back? I highly doubt it. Paddy Pimblett, a legit black belt. Is Vargas going to knock out Paddy Pimblett? I highly doubt that as well. I think it's a good spot for Pimblett here. I see why he's a big favorite. Weezy, what do you think about this one here?
Yeah, I think Cazula Vargas is going to have to bring a foreign object into the cage in order to be able to knock out Pimblett. Dude, that dude's got a crazy chin. There's a lot of things to like about Paddy here. He's 9 years younger, 2 inches taller, has a 2-inch reach advantage. And even though he's 9 years younger, he actually has more professional fights than Cazula Vargas. He's got 48 more minutes in the pro cage, and he's only been a pro for 1 year less than Vargas. So, Pimblett looks to be ready. A good finish rate, and he's an equal opportunity finisher, finishing 41% by sub, 35% by knockout, coming out to 76% of his pro wins. And Cazula Vargas has finished 83% of his 12 pro wins. So that's very good. That's 10 out of 12. And Paddy has been finishing one of his 3 losses, and Cazula's been finishing one of his 4 losses. So only 2 of these guys' 7 combined losses have come inside the distance. So this could be a sneaky fight goes to decision bet here, because both of these guys have been very durable. We don't really have much on Pimblett for striking numbers. It's only 1 fight. In Vargas's 3 fights, he lands 3.85, only absorbs 1.88. Pretty nice ratios there, but it's the 25% takedown defense, and the fact that he's been controlled for 43% of his UFC career, which has spanned 34 minutes of cage time, is alarming. That's that's being controlled for 15 minutes in only 3 fights. So it looks like, if Pimblett doesn't like how it's going on the feet, he can shoot for takedowns. And even though the Vendramini fight was only less than 5 minutes, we saw him shoot for 2 takedowns. He will wrestle. He will try to get the fight to the ground, and he's very active once he gets it there. So, I like Paddy Pimblett. The hype is real. He's very marketable. Love that Children of the Damned haircut that he brings into the cage, man. And I've been saying it for a minute, dude, that if this kid learns how to speak English, the sky's going to be the limit for him. They got to get an interpreter in the cage so we can figure out what the hell he's saying. But, you don't need an interpreter to let you know what he's doing in the cage when you watch him fight. He's fun to fight. He's fun to watch. Super exciting. Really good everywhere. And he's, when somebody uses that chin and the ability to absorb punishment as a weapon, God, it's super fun to watch. And, when you watch a horror movie like Children of the Damned and you see those crazy English haircuts that for some reason only the English find acceptable to wear in modern society, You know, it's like a horror story for his opponent, you know, because the worst horror story for any mixed martial artist is the guy that you hit in the face over and over and over again. And yet he still looks stupid. He still keeps marching forward with that crazy fucked up haircut, and he never stops coming at you. And that's Paddy Pimblett. Can't wait to see him fight Vargas. I do like Pimblett to get this fight done. I think he's going to win this one pretty easily here and do it however he wants it.
Love the analysis. Children of the damned haircut. This is the next level analysis you guys do not get anywhere else. But yeah, we see that Pimblett, I believe Pimblett is the biggest favorite on the entire card. Yeah, he is. So he's the biggest favorite on the entire card, sitting at minus 410 on Bet Online. He did open up minus 275. Vargas opened up plus 235, and he's currently plus 210. They actually have props out on this. Pretty much all the props are out on FanDuel. They have the fight goes decision plus 170, fight doesn't go decision minus 215, Pimblett by KO plus 200, Pimblett by submission plus 280, Pimblett by decision plus 250, all kind of the same there. I think Pimblett honestly could win by like a TKO. I could see him winning by sub. I could see him winning by decision. I'll just say Pimblett as a parlay piece for me. I don't really like any props. Weezy, you like anything on this one?
Yeah, you know, that's when I like to like parlay a fighter is when they're a big favorite, but then you can kind of say like, oh man, I could see him subbing this dude. I could see him knocking this dude out. I could see him winning minutes for 3 straight rounds and winning a decision. When you see that, it's hard to start betting props, right? Because you see multiple paths for the same fighter. When you see multiple paths for the same fighter, maybe just parlay the dude with somebody else that you like and not have to worry about, oh, I hope he doesn't knock him out because then I'll be out, out of luck.
Yeah.
So this feels like a good guy to parlay here. Vargas going to be making that long flight that we've talked about several times already on this card. Paddy fighting in front of his home audience, the people who actually understand him when he speaks. Yeah, man, it's going to be a great one, and I think Paddy gets it done.
It's going to be an awesome one. Cannot wait for this fight. Let us move on to the co-main event. And we have Arnold Allen going against Dan Hooker. Cannot wait for this fight as well. We have Arnold Allen, 28 years old, 5'8" with a 70-inch reach. Dan Hooker, 32 years old, 6 foot with a 75-inch reach. So Allen's going to be 4 years younger, but it's going to be Hooker, who does have a 4-inch height advantage and a 5-inch reach advantage. We'll take a look at the last few fights. We see that Allen had a decision win his last time out against Sodiq Yusuff, a decision win against Nick Lentz, a decision win against Gilbert Melendez, a decision win against Jordan Rinaldi, and then a submission win against Mads Burnell. 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Dan Hooker, he is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. A submission loss to Islam Makhachev, a decision win against Nasrat Haqparast, a knockout loss to Michael Chandler, a decision loss to Dustin Poirier, and a decision win against Paul Felder. Very good losses there. So yeah, this one is a straight pick'em, Weezy, and then the main event is a straight pick'em. So 2 very, very close fights and exciting fights to close out the card. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on this one here.
Yeah, so on the tail of the tape, you got Allen, who's 4 years younger, but then it's Hooker, who's like 6 inches, or I'm sorry, 4 inches taller, 5-inch reach advantage. Hooker fighting out of both stances, and Allen's the southpaw here. So Hooker, 14 more professional fights, about 100 more minutes in the pro cage, and about 3 more years as a pro. And he's fought just a little bit higher of a percentage at the UFC level and has 10 more UFC level fights and about 70 more minutes in the UFC cage in comparison to Arnold Allen. It's Hooker who's the much better finisher here with an 81% career finish rate, while for Allen, it's only a 53% finish rate. And in the UFC, it's Hooker who's showing a 73% finish rate in his wins, while for Arnold Allen, it's only 25%. So Allen has been a good minute winner. He's got a couple of wins by submission in the UFC, but for the most part, this guy is winning minutes and winning rounds and therefore winning decisions. Arnold Allen's never been finished in his career, and Dan Hooker has been finished in 45% of his 11 losses. So that is 5 of 11 losses, 3 by submission, 2 by knockout. So when we get to the striking numbers, you see Allen winning minutes, landing 2.96, only absorbing 2.15. Very defensively responsible with a 66% striking defense. and he also offers up about one more significant strike attempt per minute than his opponents do, landing at a 40% striking accuracy, but he's landed 3 knockdowns in 8 UFC fights, so almost a 1% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed. Hooker is a lot more accurate, landing at a 48% rate, and he has 7 knockdowns in 898 significant strikes landed in 18 fights. So he's showing some really nice power, and he's only been knocked down twice in 18 fights. So he's got a very good chin as well. However, when we talk about defensive skills here, Arnold Allen striking defense 66%, Hooker 52%. So, is the ability here for Arnold Allen there to win minutes on the feet against Dan Hooker? 4 inches shorter, 5-inch reach disadvantage. Hooker fighting out of both stances, so he might be able to fight out of the southpaw stance long enough, or even the orthodox stance long enough to maybe hold off Allen's jab, confuse him. This could be very interesting on the feet. Allen has done a good job of winning minutes on the ground, despite the fact that his opponents are trying way more takedown attempts than him. He's been very responsible there. The ability to not lose minutes there when his opponents want to take him down, and the ability to win minutes there when he doesn't like how it's going on the feet. He's getting out-controlled 19.8% to 18%, but his opponents have tried 51 takedowns while Arnold has only tried 22. So I'd say he's very responsible. Now, Hooker has tried 30 takedown attempts, and his opponents have tried 66, but Hooker is actually out-controlling his opponents at a 2-to-1 ratio. Both of these guys are showing takedown defense of better than 75%. Yeah, I got to tell you, man, Arnold Allen, the prospect, 4 years younger, right? Really showing a fantastic ability to win minutes. But I think that this is the first time that Hooker's fighting somebody that isn't spectacular somewhere. Arnold Allen is a good minute winner and fight winner, but he doesn't win moments. He's not knocking dudes' heads into the third row. He's not throwing up flying triangles. He's not dominating large swaths of fights with his wrestling. He's just kind of good everywhere. But Hooker, with that reach advantage, the high-level experience, fighting twice as experienced competition and guys with better win-loss ratios, beating the better competition, losing to elite guys, former champions, champion challengers, and future champions. There's a lot, in my opinion, going here for statistically for Hooker that leads me to believe that him at even money is a little bit of a discount here. What do you think?
No, I totally agree. And somebody brought up in the chat, like, this is going to be Hooker's first fight at 145 since the Jason Knight fight, which was back in November of 2016. So I think for me, I'm just going to sit back and first of all, see where the line goes. And second of all, I want to see Hooker on the scales. Like, how's he going to look? Because he's going to be big, man. He's going to be much bigger than Arnold Allen. But yeah, you bring it up. The more experienced fighter, he's fought the better competition. I mean, just look at his last 3 losses. Makhachev, Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier, all 3 of those guys would smoke Allen, in my opinion. So, yeah, we'll have to see. I think the weigh-in's going to be important for me on this one. But yeah, we see it is at a pick'em. Curious to see who opened up a favorite. It was Arnold Allen who opened up a favorite at minus 150. He's currently minus 110. Dan Hooker opened up plus 130. He is currently minus 110. Yeah, again, I'm really looking forward to see where this line goes. If I can get Hooker at plus money, I don't think it's the worst shot in the world. I mean, we talked about all the advantages he has, but Allen does have a lot of hype on him. This guy has not lost in a while. When was the last time that Allen lost? Do you know?
Oh God, I don't know. I don't have it in front of me because I don't have Tapology up. But he's 17-1, and I mean, he's like on like an 8 or a 9 fight winning streak, I think.
Yeah, the last time he lost was back in 2014.
Wow.
2014.
Who was the guy who beat him?
Marcin Kozork.
Huh.
I don't know.
Well, the big ups, Marcin Kozork, because you have the only blemish on Arnold Allen's perfect record, man. That's a good win for him. I mean, Yeah, this guy's he's a really good, and he's still only 28, Brady. So
Yeah.
there's a lot to like here. And you mentioned it, and thank the chat for doing it as well. First fight in a minute at 145 for Hooker. Flying from New Zealand to England is not going to be a walk in the park for him either. So I would like to see him on the scale first, because if he gets there late, if he has a tough weight cut, a guy like Arnold Allen is just a master of crafting a game plan that allows him to be able to win minutes. And if Hooker isn't at his best, I think Allen will be able to continue doing that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I do have other props here. On FanDuel, the fight goes to decision, open up -118, now -130. The fight doesn't go is +104. I think if there is a finish, it's going to come from the Hooker side. Let's see. Allen by decision +190. Hooker by knockout +310. Anything sticking out to you in the props? Nothing really sticking out to me.
Not really, man. But Hooker does have an 81% finish rate as a pro, and Allen has just over a 50% finish rate as a pro. So yeah, if one of these guys is more likely to finish, it's probably Hooker. And he's been fairly durable. I mean, he's been finished in 5 of 11 losses, but look at who's finishing them. Yeah. So yeah, I wouldn't touch the time props in this one. Both of these guys are so good. It probably does go to decision, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think it does as well, more often than not. But we'll move on to the main event. Me and Weezy will be on the MMA Engine YouTube channel tomorrow. Check us out, breaking down the main event. We'll be going live around 5:15 p.m. Eastern time to go even deeper into this fight. But we have Alexander Volkov going against Tom Aspinall, another very closely lined fight on the card. I believe it's a pick him at the moment. Volkov is 33 years old, 6'7" with an 80-inch reach. Tom Aspinall, 28 years old, 6'5" with a 78-inch reach. It's going to be Aspinall, who's 5 years younger, and it's going to be Volkov that has a 2-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage as well. So Aspinall makes his debut against the GOAT, Jake Collier, and knocks him out in the first minute. That win is definitely aging very well. A lot of people very weirdly high on Jake Collier nowadays, and then knocks out Alain Badeau, who just recently went to a close decision with Parker Porter. And then he submits Andrei Arlovsky in that second round, and then knocks out Sergey Spivak, who Spivak came in on short notice. I don't think Spivak landed one strike in that fight, but Tom Aspinall hit him with an elbow and got him out of there. So yeah, Aspinall's been looking really good. This is a guy that I'm very high on. I like this guy a lot, a prospect that I've been looking out for. He said it himself that he wants to kind of take it slow. He kind of wants to build himself up. And they give him Volkov, which I thought that was very interesting because he literally just said he wants to kind of take it slow. But this is going to be a big step up in competition from guys like Badeau, Collier, Arlovsky, and a short notice Spivak. Volkov, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, a decision loss to Curtis Blades, a knockout win against Walt Harris, knockout win against Alistair Overeem, a decision loss to Cyril Gahn, and just recently a decision win against Marcin Tybura. And I think these types of fights are the hardest ones to call. You have the very hyped up prospect in Tom Aspinall. The guy's been looking phenomenal against lower level guys, but he's now finally taking this step up in competition against Alexander Volkov, who, Volkov, when he's losing, he is losing to legit guys. If you're a legit guy, you're beating Volkov. Cyril Gahn beats him. Curtis Blades beats him. Derek Lewis beats him in a fight where, Volkov was winning 99% of that fight. And by the way, Lewis is the only guy to knock out Volkov in the UFC. But yeah, I really like what I see from Aspinall. This guy's striking is legit. He's huge for the division. But I do have some question marks. What does Aspinall look like if he can't get Volkov out of there in the first round and a half? What does he look like in the second round, in the third round? I think Volkov is going to be able to stuff takedowns if they do come. Aspinall is 2 for 2 on takedowns. He did take down Andrei Arlovsky, and he did take down Alain Badeau, but Volkov's takedown defense is legit. He just stuffed, 16 takedowns in his last fight against Tybura. I see this fight standing. I really like what I see from Aspinall, but there's question marks for me. Weezy, help me out here. I'm kind of flipping back and forth. It's a tough fight here.
Yeah, and I don't see why you wouldn't, man. This is a great fight. It's great matchmaking. Aspinall, he probably told the UFC, hey, I want to hold back. I want to take this easy. And they probably told him, fuck you. You're one of the top 5 young heavyweights that we've got in this division. And frankly, a lot of these guys are not exciting anymore, and we got to get you in there against top-notch competition. And Alexander Volkov is the definition of that. This is a guy who's only 33 years old, so he's young for the heavyweight division, yet he has 42 pro fights. So when you look at this, Volkov has not only got the tail of the tape advantage here, being 2 inches taller and having a 2-inch reach advantage, despite the fact that, Aspinall is only 28 here and he's an up-and-coming prospect. You're talking about Volkov here with a wealth of experience, having almost 30 more professional fights, having over 300 more minutes as a pro, more than 5 years more as a pro, and 6 more UFC level fights, and 150 more minutes in the UFC cage. So Volkov with experience and tail of the tape advantages that cannot be ignored here. But Aspinall finishing 100% of his pro wins inside the distance, while for Volkov, it's 73%, which is really impressive over a 33 win sample size. Aspinall has been finishing 1 of his 2 losses, and Alexander Volkov has been finishing 4 of 9 losses. The striking numbers that we have here for Volkov are excellent over a 10-fight sample size, landing 5.21, absorbing 3.19. He's gotten about 3 knockdowns out of 877 significant strikes landed. He has been knocked down twice in 10 fights. 54% striking defense is pretty good. 56% striking accuracy is pretty good. Really good ratios there. Aspinall in a 4-fight sample size, he's been dominant, landing 7.19, only absorbing 2.37, 70% striking defense, 65% striking accuracy, 2.53% significant strikes landed there, knockdowns per significant strikes landed, and then 2.73 knockdowns per 15 minutes. So Aspinall's just been next level on the feet. The boxing is fantastic. But he's going to be at a 2-inch reach disadvantage, a 2-inch height disadvantage here. So, and Alexander Volkov is a really good range manager in the kickboxing game. So Aspinall is going to have to find ways to close the distance here, and that's not going to be easy for him. If Volkov was a good wrestler or a willing wrestler, I'd like his chances to be able to win minutes on the ground here. Because when you watch the regional scene footage on Aspinall, now it was a long time ago at this point, he's not good at stopping takedowns. And I mean, he stopped a couple from Spivak, but Spivak flew from Moldova to Vegas like 3 days before that fight was supposed to happen. He just took a check there. That was, I don't even think that was a fair fight. It shouldn't have even been sanctioned, on that short a notice for Spivak. So, unfortunately, it's hard to know what Aspinall's ground game is going to look like if he faces a willing wrestler in the UFC, but that's not Volkov. 10 takedown attempts in 10 fights. He's gotten 7 of them, which is good, but the control time on the aggregate is less than 7%. So, you really can't count on Volkov to win minutes on the ground. While Aspinall has done that, he's gotten only 2 takedowns, but still in those 2 takedowns, he's gotten almost 3 minutes of control time, and he's gotten a submission. So very good efficiency on the ground for Aspinall here. I don't like Volkov's chances to win minutes on the ground against Aspinall because, he's just not a willing enough wrestler. But, the strength of schedule better for Volkov, the wins better for Volkov, and he's losing to the elite competition. But look at Aspinall's wins. The average guy that he's beaten is 8 and 5.25 because he's got the wins over Spivak and Arlovsky, and even Fat Collier's on a bit of a run right now. So, it's definitely looking like the strength of schedule for Aspinall has been pretty good up to this point. So he's going to take this step up against Volkov on Saturday. He's going to be at a 2-inch reach disadvantage, a 2-inch height disadvantage, and a big-time experience disadvantage. And, we're going to have to see him win a lot of minutes on the feet here in order to beat Volkov. And I don't know if he's up to it. We've just seen Volkov face the much better brand of competition. Aspinall catching a guy like Arlovsky on his way out has really kind of bolstered his strength of schedule numbers. we got to remember that Volkov has fought the much better brand of competition, and he's fighting guys in their prime, so yeah, in this case, I really do think that Volkov is going to be the better minute winner on the feet here. And I don't see Aspinall going to the wrestling to win minutes because, I don't think he's taken down Volkov. Volkov is very difficult to close distance on. So he's going to have to land a big shot like Derek Lewis did against him. But I don't know, man. I like Volkov here.
Yeah, only 2 guys have knocked out Volkov in 42 fights, which is crazy because the dude's a heavyweight. Only 2 guys have done it. And it is the 2 guys that have done it was, of course, Derek Lewis knocked him out. And that was a fight that Volkov was winning like every second. And the other guy to knock him out was back in 2013, Vitaly Minikov. Do you know Minikov?
Minikov, he's a monster.
Yeah, he is. Bellator guy. This dude's a beast. So, and Minikov's 22-2 now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those are the only 2 guys to knock out Volkov. And my problem with Aspinall is, again, like, what happens if this fight goes over 1.5 rounds, 2 rounds? Somebody mentioned in the chat, every fight that has went over 1.5, we have seen Aspinall lose. So tons of question marks. We'll take a look at the line. We see that Aspinall opened up plus 125. He's now minus 111. And Volkov opened up minus 145, and he is minus 109. And I agree with a lot of the chat saying Aspinall will be the favorite by fight time. So the fight goes to decision plus 210. The fight doesn't go to decision is minus 280. That's on FanDuel, but we see that the fight doesn't go to decision is minus 195 on 5 dimes. So, I think if Aspinall wins, I think it's Aspinall within the first, round and a half. I think if Volkov wins, I think it could be really in any round, but could even be a decision as well. So, I kind of like the Volkov side as well. I'm very, very high on Aspinall, as many people are, but it's a big step up. It's a 5-round fight. I don't like that, and I just need to see more. So if anything, I might take the shot on Volkov once he does go to plus money. As far as the props go, I did see a prop on FanDuel that people might like if they are on the Aspinall side. It is Aspinall to win in either rounds 1, 2, or 3, and that is plus 200. Aspinall by KO is plus 210. I don't hate that. But yeah, I think if Aspinall wins, I think it's going to be early on. So any thoughts on the line? Any thoughts on any props? Looks like Volkov plus 175 by knockout, Volkov by decision plus 500. That's interesting. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, it's so hard to know if Aspinall can go a full 5 rounds, because we just don't see him after 1.5. We know that Volkov can. He can go a hard 5 rounds against Gon. He's been in these 5-round fights before. So, this step up in competition. What's Aspinall's gas tank going to look like? If he chooses to wrestle, it's going to be even more draining on his gas tank. So, I really do think that Volkov's got more ways to win this fight. So I kind of like Volkov's money line, but the time props, I'm scared of the time props here. I think I'm going to stay away from those.
Yeah, I'm right there with you as well. So yeah, that is about it. We did it. We are at about 2 hours. So I think good timing there. Yeah, Weezy, me and you will be back on the MMA Engine YouTube channel. We'll be breaking down this main event, going very, very, very deep into it. But other than that, let them know where they can find you, what you have going on throughout the week.
Yeah, you can check me out on my YouTube channel, Uncle Weezy. On Tuesday night, I'll be doing my full card breakdown for UFC England at 10 o'clock Central Time, entitled Just the Tip with Uncle Weezy. I'll also do a Balls Deep breakdown on my channel, I think, at some point this week, in addition to doing a Balls Deep breakdown on the MMA Engine YouTube channel on Monday night at 10 o'clock Central Time. I haven't figured out what fight I'm going to do yet, but Alan Hooker would be a good choice. Krylov Craig would be a good choice. Teporia Herbert would be fun. So there's a lot of good options for this week. But yeah, check me out on MMA Engine. Check me out on my YouTube channel, Uncle Weezy, and you can check me out on Pub Sports Radio every Sunday for Stat Diggers and every Wednesday for the DFS show. Let's stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC England, you guys.
Let's do it. And you can follow me on Twitter, DFS_numbers. Instagram is DFS by the numbers. My full card breakdown prediction video should be out tomorrow. And then, of course, I'm going live with Uncle Weezy on the MMA Engine channel. And then I think it's this week, but I think I might be on the Die Hard MMA podcast as well tomorrow. So lots going on. And yeah, thank you all for hanging out. Leave a like on your way out. Subscribe to the channel. It always means a ton. We had a good amount of people in here. We'll be back next week, as always, on every Sunday, 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time. We have this week next week, 1 week off, and I think we come back to UFC 273. So that's what it, guys. I see you in there. I do want to shout out the donos once again. F. Carrillo, Big Steve, MMA Asphalt. Thank you all so much for the donations. And of course, thank you guys in the chat for participating. It does mean a ton. That's what it, guys. Good luck, and we'll talk to you very soon.